breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by Rob Donaldson, who does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets. We're going to be chatting with him a little bit about the games that we've got for Wednesday, why teams are in must-win scenarios. Typically, that means that they must not be very good. Some of the things that he looks at in terms of October baseball, and so much more. Always a good time with Rob. He'll be joining me in segment number 2 in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larsium, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever they want. That 100% of gambling transactions do get approved. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. And how about if now we take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Tuesday, try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Cleveland Guardians take down the Detroit Tigers, and both of these teams are now 85 and 72. 5-2 the final as Tariq Skubal was absolutely cruising. He gives up a grand total of 3 runs, one of which was earned in 6 innings, but he tried to hike the ball to the first baseman. Just a complete loss of cool. He hit David Fry as he was trying to bunt in the face with a ball, and that was a calamity of a 6th inning. From there, Tommy Kahnle gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning. Kyle Finnegan, a run in 1/3 of an inning. Brent Herter, Rafael Montero, they combine for a scoreless inning, and for the Detroit Tigers, Riley Green does go deep off of Gavin Williams, his 35th home run of the campaign. Williams, 12 strikeouts, gives up 2 runs in the course of 6 innings. Eric Zabrowski, Hunter Gaddis, Cade Smith, they get the job done. The best under team gets the job done to the under, but they do not get the job done in terms of a win that they badly need. The Reds, they fall to the Pittsburgh Pirates by a count of 4-2. You don't mess with the Johan Oviedo, got messed with a little bit. 2 runs allowed in 4 2/3 innings as he gives up home run to Ellie De La Cruz, 21st home run of the campaign. Bullpen from there was very solid. Isaac Madsen, Justin Lawrence, Hunter Barco, hopefully I said that correct, Dennis Santana, all in a scoreless inning, and Jordi Maretta, and out of the bullpen scoreless, and Oneil Cruz goes deep off Brady Singer, 20th home run season. Brady Singer was singing the blues in this one, 4 runs allowed in 5 1/3 innings. From there, Connor Phillips, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, Graham Ashcraft, Scott Barlow, they both ended scoreless inning, but not a lot doing for the Reds at the plate now. 59 overs, 89 unders, and 9 pushes, and for the Pirates, they're tied for the second best under rate in all baseball, 63 overs, 89 unders, and 5 pushes. That's the same over-under rate for the Orioles. The Orioles are also hitting 58.6% of their games to the under, and they kept things under against the Tampa Bay Rays, 6-0 as the Rays. Nothing doing for them, and Ryan Pepiot only goes 3 innings. He allows 3 runs, all of which were earned. Rays are really trying to limit the innings of these guys as Ian Seymour in long relief as a piggyback. He gives up 3 runs over the course of 4 innings, and he did allow a home run along the way to Colton Cowser, 16th home run of the season. From there, Kevin Kelly, a scoreless inning, and for Baltimore, Dean Kramer, nice start, 6 1/3 inning scoreless. Joey Castillo, a pair of outs out the bullpen scoreless. Colin Selby and Yarmil Hidalgo both give you a scoreless inning as well. For the Miami Marlins, they take down the Philadelphia Phillies in 11 innings, 6-5 the final. This game featured a rain delay, and hey, Marlins could still have a winning record if they win out. They were able to have Edward Cabrera go out there for the first time in quite some time and didn't necessarily look the sharpest. 3 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Kyle Schwarber takes him deep, 54th home run in the campaign, and Otto Kemp, his 7th home run of the season. From there, the bullpen was pretty solid, though. Michael Peterson, great name. He does give up 2 runs, one of which was earned in the 10th inning, but yeah, Tyler Phillips, Kate Gibson, George Soriano, Valentin Beloso, all in the scoreless inning. Calvin Fauché, he gets 4 pitches out of the bullpen. He doesn't get a single out, but yeah, Josh Simpson give you 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this was a very solid outing from one Christopher Sanchez, 7 scoreless innings, and then the bullpen yacked this one away. David Robertson, 2 runs, one of which was earned in 2/3 of an inning, including a home run. Yohan Aran, he gives up a solo home run in the 9th inning to force things into extra innings. Tanner Banks, and out of the bullpen scoreless, Orion Kirkering, 2 runs, one of which was earned, give it up in the 10th, and Lou Trevino Aquino gives up an unearned run in the 11th. As for the Miami Marlins, Griffin Conine, his second home run of the campaign, and Alberto Hernandez, his 10th home run of the season. For the New York Yankees, they clinch a playoff spot. They take down the Chicago White Sox, this by a count of 3-2, as for the Southsiders, Shane Smith gives up a run over the course of 5 innings, but then you have Brandon Eiser give up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Tyler Gilbert, Jordan Leisure, Grant Taylor all lend a scoreless inning. Steven Wilson, he tried to hold on inherited runners in the 9th inning, unable to do so, and for the White Sox, you did have Colson Montgomery go deep, 19th home run season off of Luis Ielu, gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. Fernando Cruz, a scoreless inning. Tim Hill, Luke Weaver, they combined for 2 scoreless innings of their own. The Atlanta Braves looking to close out the season with a little bit of thunder. They take down the Washington Nationals by a count of 3-2. Brad Lord says, "Oh Lord, this was a pretty solid start. 2 runs allowed in 6 innings. Though he did give up 2 solo home runs. Ronald Acuna Jr., his 20th home run season. Michael Harris, his 18th home run season. Then Harris with the difference maker off of Connor Pilkington, 19th home run season. Pilkington gives up that solo home run in a 1/3 of an inning. Orlando Rebalta, pair of outside the bullpen squirrels, and squirrels inning out of Julian Fernandez. And for Washington, James Wood had good wood off of Dylan Lee, 28th home run season, but great start from Herson Waldrop, 1 run allowed in 6 innings, albeit 4 walks. Yo Piamps, Raciel Iglesias lend a squirrels inning, and then Lee gives up that solo home run in his inning of work. For the Boston Red Sox, they take down the Toronto Blue Jays in a very fascinating AL East race. 4-1 the final, as Lucas Giolito, not long for this game, gives up 4 walks in 4 2/3 innings, but only 1 run, and from there the bullpen holds it down. Justin Slade, Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Woodlock all lend a scoreless inning. Justin Wilson for outside the bullpen scoreless, and for the Red Sox, they go 4-14 with men in scoring position. They get to Kevin Gausman pretty good, 4 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings of work. Louis Varland, Mason Fluharty, both give you 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Braden Fisher and Tommy Nance both give you 1 out at the bullpen scoreless. The Milwaukee Brewers get completely shut out by the Slam Diego Padres by a count of 7-0 as Bruce Zimmerman gets slammed. He eats 6 innings, he gives up 6 runs, 5 of which were earned. He gave up 4 runs while getting just his first out as he was taken deep for a grand slam by Ryan O'Hearn, 17th home run season. Then Luis Reyes, his 8th home run season, and then Tobias Myers gives one up to Jose Iglesias, 3rd home run season and 2nd home run series. Myers gives up that solo home run in his 2 innings of work, and for the Brewers, absolutely nothing doing off of 1 out. Andy Vasquez, who gives up 1 hit and 7 scoreless innings, only 3 strikeouts, but did a good job of being able to induce soft contact. Wandy Peralta, a scoreless inning, and Yuki Matsui, a scoreless inning of his own. The Mariners get the job done over the Colorado Rockies. 4-3 the final in this one, as for the Mariners, they needed to put up a 3 spot in the 8th inning to be able to get this one done. As for the Seattle Mariners, the big difference in this one, how about Josh Naylor, an RBI double in the 8th inning to be able to be the difference maker, as Bryce Miller, not the start he was looking for, 3 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings, but the bullpen at his back. Carlos Vargas, Gabe Spire, Andres Munoz lend a scoreless inning, Edward Bizardo, and out of the bullpen scoreless inning. For the Seattle Mariners, 4 runs on 3 hits in this game, as McCade Brown, who's been terrible at the big league level, he gives up a solo home run in 5 innings, punch out 10. Dom Canzone took him deep, 11th home run season. From there, Jay Nill, Jeremy Harrogate both lend a scoreless inning, and Juan Mejia gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning before Victor Vodnik gets an out of the bullpen scoreless, and the Rangers were held relatively scoreless by the Minnesota Twins, 4-1. Minnesota gets the job done and pretty much puts a kibosh on the Texas Rangers season. Zebby Matthews, a solo home run allowed over the course of his 7 innings of work. Jock Peterson, his 9th home run of the campaign, and Patrick Corbin, who had to pitch in long relief over the weekend in the 12th inning, he did not look sharp. 2 runs allowed in 3 2/3 innings. From there, Jacob Webb, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless. Hobie Milner gives up 2 runs. He doesn't get a single out. Cole went 2 scoreless innings, and Danny Kalum and Chris Martin combined for 2 scoreless innings, but not a lot doing at the plate for the Rangers. As for the bullpen of Minnesota, Cole Sands, Cody Funderburk are able to lend a scoreless inning, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they're keeping their playoff hopes alive. 80-77 for them, and they take down the LA Dodgers by a count of 5-4. Shohei Ohtani was great. 8 strikeouts and 6 scoreless innings. From there, though, Jack Dreyer gives up 2 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Edgar Enriquez, he gives up a home run in his 3rd of an inning. Alex Vesia, a scoreless inning, and Tanner Scott closes this game in the 9th inning as Geraldo Perdomo's RBI single is able to be the difference maker for the Dodgers. They did get a pair of home runs in this one. Brandon Falk gives one up to Teoscar Hernandez, 25th home run season, and Ben Rodfit has not had a good season, ending $165. He gets a home run off of John Curtis with 2 S's, his first of the campaign. Fought, battled his way through 6 innings, giving up 3 runs. John Curtis with 2 S's gives up a home run in 2/3 of an inning of work. Jalen Beekson out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Brandon Garcia and Ryan Thompson both lend a scoreless inning. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, they are hot on the heels of the New York Mets, who they come back from down 6-1 in the great beyond against the Chicago Cubs to get it done by a count of 9-7 as David Peterson, Great name, not a great start. He is run after getting 4 outs. He gives up 5 runs, all of which were earned. Bullpen actually comes up big here. Oscar Brazobin, 2 2/3 innings. He allows an unearned run as Jeff McNeil had 2 errors in this game. Ryan Stanek, Taylor Rogers both lend 8 scoreless inning. Gregory Soto, he gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning of work, but Brooks Raley does not go off the Rayleys with an out of the bullpen scoreless. Edwin Diaz, 2 scoreless innings with 5 punch-outs, and for the New York Mets, trio bombs in this one. Cade Orton gives one up to Francisco Lindor, 29th home run season for Tyler Rogers, the other Rogers. Actually, Tyler is on the Mets, Taylor is on the Cubs. Those always get confusing, but Brandon Nimmo, 25th home run of the campaign off of Taylor Rogers, and then Francisco Alvarez, 10th home run of the campaign. That comes off of Caleb Theobar. Theobar gives up 2 runs in his inning work. Cade Orton only went 3 innings in this one. Very curious decision there. He gives up an solo home run. Michael Soroka gives up 4 unearned runs in 1 2/3 innings of work as Dansby Swanson had a terrible error out there in the field. Taylor Rogers gives up 2 runs in an inning, including that home run. Dupron Maranson out of the bullpen scoreless. Andrew Kittredge, Jordan Wicks, they both lend a scoreless inning, but massive win for the Mets, currently controlling that final NL wildcard spot. For the Kansas City Royals, looks like they're not going to the postseason, but they can finish above 500. 8-4, they're able to take down the LA Angels as Samuel Aldigiri. 3 runs allowed over the course of 4 2/3 innings from their Ryan Zephyrian and out of the bullpen scoreless. Sam Bachman a scoreless inning, and then the bullpen Urena all over themselves. Jose Urena, 3 runs allowed in 2 innings. Brocken Roberg, he gives up 2 runs over the course of an inning. And for the Angels, you had Bryce Tessuto, hopefully I said that correct, get his first home run of the campaign, and Taylor Ward is 35th. For Ward, too little too late. That comes off of Sammy Long, who gives up 2 runs, one of which was earned in the 9th inning with that home run. John Schreiber, Steven Cruz, Taylor Clark lend a scoreless inning. Cole Ragans looks like vintage Cole Ragans, does give up a home run, but 2 runs over the course of 5 innings, 10 punch-outs out of him. So very rock solid on that front, and I am doing this as these games are starting to wrap up. Have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, but that said, looks like the Astros are going to fall to the LA Angels, currently 5-1 in the top of the 9th inning, and for Houston, Christian Javier, not what he was looking for, 4 runs, 3 of which were in 4 2/3 innings, and the Astros all of a sudden becoming in danger of missing the playoffs. Angel De Los Santos gives up a run in an inning. Stephen Okert, a scoreless inning. And then Jaden Murray, 4 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, but nothing doing for the Astros at the plate. Currently doing this with 1 out in the top of the 9th inning, and they've got 3 hits and 1 run as Jeffrey Springs, great start here. 1 run allowed in 5 innings. Tyler Ferguson, 2 scoreless innings. Justin Sterner, a scoreless inning. Michael Kelly looking to get those final 2 outs to be able to polish that one off. And for the San Francisco Giants, they're currently tied with the St. Louis Cardinals in the 9th inning. This by a count of 8-8 as this game has been nutty and insane. Andre 3000 Palante, well, he certainly did not get 3,000 outs, but he gave up 5 runs, 2 of which were earned in 2 2/3 innings. Now, 3 of those runs were unearned and Nolan Arenado, a rough error out there in the field. But then from there, John King was the king of giving you a scoreless inning. Matt Savanson, scoreless inning. Ode Alcala gives up 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings. Chris Roycroft, in his 2 innings, he does give up a solo home run going deep for the San Francisco Giants. Eloy Ramos, his 20th home run of the season. And for Logan Webb, 3 runs allowed in 6 innings. All 3 came in the first inning. And this bullpen is yakking this game up right now. Ryan Walker gives up a run in the 9th inning, and he's not out of the 9th inning yet as I do this. Joey Lucchesi gives up 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning, including home run. Spencer Bivens, a solo home run, give it up in a 1/3 of an inning of work. And Yoel Piguero, a scoreless inning, going deep for St. Louis. Nolan Arenado, 11th home run season, and Ivan Herrera, his 11th home run season and his 2nd home run of the season. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in baseball right now, it certainly has been an underwhelming season, and over the last 30 days, it's relatively 50-50 between overs and unders. 190 overs to 193 unders, so right around 50.5% to the under. Money line favorites hitting in the neighborhood of about 53.5%, with the Giants versus Cardinals game pending 208 and 181 on the money line. If you're taking a look at the last 7 days in baseball, again with the Cardinals and Giants game pending, favorites 45 and 41 on the money line, so hitting just below 53%. Over rate right now is at about 41.5%. We've seen 35 overs to 49 unders over the last 7 days, and overall for the season, the under rate is about 51.2%, 1,152 unders, 1,099 overs, with the money line favorites hanging at about 56%, 1,310 and 1,015. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we chat with our good friend Rob Donaldson of youtube.com/Rob Donaldson's Rob's Best Bet Show right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Rob Donaldson aboard. He does such great work with the show/podcast, Rob's Best Bets, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. I know that he is hard at work trying to be able to find some winners on this card. He, much like myself, also trying to get set for the upcoming college basketball season as well. You've been hearing him quite a bit on the Coast to Coast Hoops podcast as well. You're able to catch him on youtube.com/Rob Donaldson and on the old Twitter/X at RobDFB altogether. And Rob, it's always great to be able to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. My goodness, man. You know, a month from now, it kind of felt like the wild card was shaping up to be a little bit more clear. And now, as we sit here on September 23rd, it couldn't be less clear. And honestly, I'm loving that kind of product right now in the sport.
Oh, yes, it is a lot of good, clean family fun, my friend, because in the National League side of things, we're doing this before the finals happened in Tuesday's game, so we're doing this out of that. But the Reds have everything to play for, and right now are pooping the bed against the Pirates. You've got a Mets team that, well, they've up-trucked all over themselves. The Arizona Diamondbacks somehow, someway are still alive as well. What do you make out of this National League picture where, the big story is the Mets and the way that they have completely toiled bowl what looked to be a surefire playoff spot?
Yeah, I think that has to be the one that you point to, right? And at the same time, kind of lost in the mix there is the Los Angeles Dodgers have went from a super team that was supposed to run through the entire league to a very mortal-esque team that can lose to almost anybody. I think when you do have that type of dynamic with the team that was deemed kind of the best from the outset, and you're also seeing just the teams that were supposed to be potentially formidable. I'm looking at you, the Mets. I'm looking at you, the Diamondbacks. And all of a sudden, now they're battling it out to see kind of who holds on or who can make the wild card last spot. I think it's just such a fun dynamic. And yeah, the NL, I think it's just the Phillies and then the Brewers and then kind of everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, it is a lot of fun to be taking a look on that front end. Is there any of those teams that are currently fighting for the playoff spots out there in the National League? Obviously we've got the Mets, Diamondbacks. The Giants, I guess, are still alive. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I guess they're still alive. But are there any of those teams that are on the fringe that you might be feeling a little bit bullish on and might be able to make a run this next week? Because if they do, they'll probably make you a lot of money on a game-to-game circumstance.
It's so interesting now that we're in a sport where I think everybody kind of jumped the shark and said, hey, we don't need all of the aces compiled in our rotation. We just need guys who give us that 5 or 6 innings, and then we're going to go ahead and go to our bullpen analytics and just trot out the same arms over and over again to win playoff games, because offense is where the sport is at. But what we're seeing now with the Mets is, hey, you still got to make the playoffs to be successful in the playoffs. And even if you have the offense, you probably should have retooled your pitching staff at some point in time, either before the season started or during the trade deadline. And for that reason, it's hard for me to kind of grasp at any one of those teams that are kind of fighting in that bottom of the mix, because they all have their holes that are very, very unignorable. And I do think maybe the Reds kind of have that more full profile, but I don't think that they have a better offense than the Mets. So it's one of those things that, hey, we'll see how it plays out, but I don't think any of those teams are actually competing long-term this season.
And it's so interesting because we are starting to get an opener up on the board for that Mets versus Cubs game. And I want to talk about a team that's had a little bit of a rough second half of the season, looking at you, the Cubs, so they will make the playoffs. Right now, minus 130 on the Cubs with Matthew Boyd, plus 110 with Jonah Tong, and the Mets in a total of 7 with the wind very much blowing in this one. How do you take a look at a game like this? Because with the New York Mets, I think that they're a little bit better than what they've shown over the last few weeks, but now we're in a circumstance where you can't really bank on regression because we only have 5 or 6 games left for these teams. They sort of are what they are, and I need to see the Mets get one through the hoop before I can believe in them again.
Yeah, and when you are looking at the Cubs, and just, again, we were talking about this at the trade deadline episodes before and after. I can't believe they just sat on their hands, because this was a rotation that we knew potentially had the downside of just free falling for them. And that was kind of the bright spot of this team in terms of the surprise bright spot in the front half of the season. And Matthew Boyd was the guy who was kind of leading that charge. Well, now you look at his last 6 starts, he's allowed 4+ runs in 5 of the 6 starts, and it's all been against teams that, he was carving up in the beginning half. And so now when you are looking at the Cubs with this sort of optic perspective of, hey, their guy who was supposed to be kind of leading the charge out of the rotation, Matthew Boyd, is kind of regressing back to what we knew Matthew Boyd to be. I'm losing faith in the Cubs. I'm also already lost faith in the Mets. So it's one of those things where, again, you can just kind of poke holes in all these teams. But I think the best thing to bank on in this game is just runs from both sides. And I think it's going to happen within that first 5 frames.
It's a faithless bet. That's what you're saying. It's a faithless bet, which that's sometimes how it goes in baseball right now. And you want to talk about faithless. It's very interesting with the Atlanta Braves and the Washington Nationals in that Bryce Elder has actually been better recently. 2 runs or fewer allowed in 5 out of his last 6 starts. I still believe that the guy that we all know and love is going to be coming out. And Andrew Alvarez, in his 4 starts with the Nationals, actually has a sub-3 ERA, but you look at the advanced numbers and they're not necessarily great. How do you look at this with a total of 9, the Braves right around like a minus 190, minus 180-ish favorite?
Yeah, and it's hilarious when you look at, the Braves, the Marlins, 2 teams that have been out of the mix for some time, but are 9-1 over their last 10, and have actually been playing some really good baseball, even beyond that last 10 sort of stretch. And the Nationals are a team that, unfortunately, all the moves that they have made over the past few years have really culminated into a very fantastic offensive-esque baseball team. They just don't have much else outside of that. And that's why they have a negative 204 run differential. It's not because they can't score runs. It's because they give up too many runs. And again, when you are looking at that type of dynamic at play here, the Braves and Bryce Elder, I do feel like are going to regress a little bit back to the means. And Washington at this type of number does kind of feel like a pretty good buy spot. So I'm looking at the first 5, avoiding the bullpen of the Nationals, trying to get that run and get those runs early. And I think a run line, a money line, and even a team total over through the first 5 would be my angles that I'm looking at there.
Yeah, and even a full game over is something I look at too. The Atlanta Braves are not great with their bullpen, and the Washington Nationals, out of 30 teams, guess where they rank in terms of bullpen ERA? If you guess number 30, you are correct. As Rob Donaldson, who does great work with the show/podcast, Rob's the Best Bets, is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Oh, here's another team I've lost faith in. The St. Louis Cardinals. What a disaster for them in the second half of the season. Sonny Gray going against Robbie Ray, and Robbie Ray has been more like Robbie Boo recently. He's been giving up quite a few runs, but the Giants are between minus 120 and minus 130 favorites, total of 7.5. How do you take a look at this one, especially with the Cardinals now without Wilson Contreras, who felt like was a lone guy hitting in the second half of the season for them?
Yeah, it's just a lot of just miscast names at this point in the Cardinals lineup, and a lot of guys that they're hoping to find sparks with in that younger sort of category where they have team control. But to your point, this Cardinals team, it's crazy to think back near to the trade deadline where this was a team that basically sat on their hands and said, hey, we're not going to go full sail kind of firing or selling away our players because we believe in this nucleus and want to see what it can do. Well, it didn't really do much. And now we're in a scenario here where they're taking on the Giants, who potentially still have something to play for, but not really. And I think ultimately what wins in this game is just going to be the pitchers on the bump. And although I don't like Sonny Gray just in this back half of the season, Robbie Ray has been struggling as of late as well. I do think that both lineups are just kind of out of it mentally, and for that reason, I do like taking a shot at the under here.
Yep, and with this one, I'm actually in on the under as well, even though both of these pitchers have been in not such great form, and the ballpark dimensions are so good for me to take a look at the under as well, because the Giants have such a pitcher-friendly ballpark. And how much of that do you take a look at a little bit more in September and October? Because I do think that setting your totals nice and low these next few weeks is going to be big, especially when it comes to postseason baseball, where it feels like every pitch, every at-bat, it gets magnified even more. And these teams that rely upon the deep ball, they always do seem to struggle this time of year, because those home runs that they were getting in June and July, a lot of those become fly balls to the warning track here this time of year.
Yeah, we're seeing 50s and 60s now. And if you follow baseball, then you don't need me to tell you about how, humidity and just warm weather makes the ball travel farther. You think back to March and April and the lack of home runs. In fact, we were on kind of a historic pace in those months in terms of the lack of home runs and the increase in batting average. We'll kind of reframe your mind back to almost that time of year where the teams that are putting the ball in play, not necessarily for home runs, but those doubles, those singles, those walks that end up being so crucial this time of year. Maybe if you are targeting overs, if you are targeting team total overs, or even just money line angles against a pitcher that's giving up quote unquote hard contact, maybe look at those lineups that are just putting the ball in play rather than trying to crush it. And I think you're going to find a lot more success than not with that kind of approach.
And do you think that actually lends to perhaps the Milwaukee Brewers being one of those teams that have a little bit of upside? Because I've talked about them all season long. They're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, but you just look up and down the boulevard, you've got guys that are able to fly at 350 on base. You've got a lot of guys that they steal bags, they generate walks, and I'm typically a very bearish guy on Wisconsin sports teams in general in the playoffs. We've seen so many of them poop the bed. Looking at you, the Bucks, looking at you, the Milwaukee Brewers, looking at you, the Green Bay Packers, looking at you, Wisconsin, every single Badger sports team out there. But I feel like this is a sort of circumstance where a team like the Brewers might be able to have a lot of success in October, especially with them most likely getting home field advantage if they take care of business here this next week.
Yeah, and this is kind of my tinfoil, take when it comes to just the Brewers in general. And this has been going all the way back to Ryan Braun, Prince Fielder days. But it almost kind of feels like their domed environment, their climate control home field advantage almost serves as a disadvantage this time of year because heck, if you're taking on the Dodgers, right, or if you're taking on some of the better Cardinals teams of the past or even the Cubs in 2016 and you're getting them inside the dome, well, then you're taking away that lack of a home run element, and you're ruining almost that approach that you can place where, hey, let's play small ball, let's put the ball in play, let's take walks, because all of a sudden then the home runs become a premium again in a climate-controlled environment. And so that's always been my thing with the Brewers is like, hey, the small ball approach is fantastic. It's going to win you some games maybe in Philly during this time of year and maybe at Wrigley this time of year or Citi Field. But all of a sudden, when you come back home, you're opening the door again to those power hitters to try and launch the ball and tee off. And I do think when you are looking at the Brewers away from Miller or whatever they're calling it now,
American Family Field, but it's still Miller Park to me, gosh dang it. I'm right there with you.
Yes, 100%. And when they're away from home, I think to your point, I think you nailed it. That style of ball is the type of ball that I want to be back in. And to even kind of a further extent with a team out in the AL right now, and they kind of tapered off a little bit as of late. But when you are looking at a team like the Baltimore Orioles over the years, that's why I think they found so much success in this time of year because they were taking that small ball approach. And so, yeah, absolutely. Find those types of teams in those little niche pockets, and I think you're going to make some dividends this time of year as well.
Oh, I am right there with you. And how do you take a look this time of year at these teams that are sort of in, and air quotes here, must-win scenarios? Because I talked about the Brewers. If they take care of business this week, they might be able to get home field advantage. But I feel like home field advantage would mean more to the Phillies than anything else. And they're not eliminated for that one seed. They're taking on the Miami Marlins this week. Obviously, we've got a bunch of teams that are trying to stay in the postseason race, like the Giants, the Reds, what have you. How do you gauge these teams? Because while I do think that having something to play for is always nice, just because it's a, and air quotes here, must-win game does not mean that you'll do so. And I always say this when it comes to all sports, if you're in a must-win game, you must not be that great.
Right. If you're constantly, and if you're in the spot of, like, say, the Mets right now or the Tigers, well, you've had must-win games for the past 2 weeks, and you're not winning them. So what does that kind of do to morale? Well, we've seen how Comerica has turned out the last few days, where it just kind of feels like we're living back in the age where they were only winning 40 games a season. And this is a team that's been in the division leader since practically day one. I think the craziest thing right now is, yes, there are must-win games. Yes, teams like the Reds are getting up and teams like the Guardians are getting up to almost kind of launch themselves into the playoff. But now we're looking at teams like the Astros, the Tigers, the Mets, where that playoff pressure, quote unquote, is seriously melting them. And I think like this year more than ever, for whatever reason, we are seeing that in 10-time fashion. And yeah, it's been a very interesting past couple weeks, and I don't think there's any reason to expect it to just all of a sudden dissipate and have these teams that have been the doldrums just kind of lighten up and play their ball again.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you mentioned the Detroit Tigers. They're on the road against Cleveland Guardians as right around about pick 'em even money, and the Guardians right around -115, -120 with it being Jack Flaherty and Tanner Bybee. How do you take a look at this one with the Guardians team that up until Sunday they were riding a 10-game win streak, and the Tigers, well, they've been the opposite of hot the last few weeks.
Yeah, there's no way that I'm backing a Tigers side right now because it's almost fool's gold inflated numbers right now. And Jack Flaherty is a pitcher that normally I like to back because although he has kind of that propensity to give up home runs and he seemingly always gives up runs during his starts, he does have that kind of mold of a 6 innings pitched, 3 earned run type of player every single outing to some extent. And for me, that's a winnable formula if you're getting a good number. But the Tigers aren't getting good numbers. And right now, the Guardians are far away a better team. Obviously, the Tigers have Skubal on the mound as we're talking. It's 1-0. We'll see how the back end of this game ends up playing out. But if Skubal can't save the day, I don't know if there's another Tigers rotation player that can. And I feel like it's a really good chance to take the Guardians on the money line here.
And then we have to talk about this game because the American League East is oh so fascinating right now. And you got yourself the Red Sox going against the Blue Jays. Max Scherzer has been in a lot of big games before, but he is now on the wrong half of 40 years old, going against Garrett Crochet, who's been a top-tier pitcher in the American League this far this season. Total 7.5, about -140 is that number on the Red Sox. How do you take a look at this spot with Crochet having given up a few runs in the last few starts, but him being the ace for the Red Sox, and a guy, Max Scherzer, has been there, done that, but as we know, not the same Max Scherzer that we saw when the Washington Nationals won the World Series many years ago.
Yeah, Max is a pitcher that I always grew up loving because of his intensity, and you could just tell he's one of those guys who was a serious gamer. I think of like prime Jake Arrieta, but Max Scherzer was that guy for 10 plus years, right? And now to kind of see him in this state, it's definitely a little bit sad, but at the same time, as a bettor, it's a fadeable opportunity with a big name, and I do think the Red Sox are in position to potentially dominate this outing, even though I think Crochet could potentially struggle against a lineup like the Blue Jays. I do think that the Red Sox will be able to give him enough run support here to really alleviate any runs that Crochet does give up. And kind of coinciding with that is the White Sox are almost in like mail it in mode at this point. They had their kind of winnable stretch where they won, 7 of 10 a few weeks ago. But now it's like, hey, let's experiment. Let's practice new lineups for the future. Let's integrate young guys in the lineup. And now we're kind of seeing that TBD going against Max Fried and the Yankees. I feel like this is a very interesting day here tomorrow because all of a sudden the Yankees could be up that one game because of the Red Sox winning against the Blue Jays and the Yankees handling business with Max Fried on the bump. And man, oh man, if you want to talk about playoff pressure, the Blue Jays might be feeling it over the next week here.
No doubt about it. And I do have to talk about this game as well. We've got the Reds and the Pirates. Pirates obviously have nothing to play for, but Paul Skeens is going to be making his last start of the regular season against Hunter Green. Total on this game is 7. Reds -115 to -120 favorites. How do you look at this game? Because I think the big question is, will they let Paul Skeens do his normal workload here or not?
Right, and that's where I think the market play is on the first 5 innings because at the very least, we probably see Skeens for 3 to 5 in kind of that frame. I don't think he's going to get pushed much further than that. And Hunter Green obviously is going to be going full tilt, where the Reds know what their bullpen is on the back end. They know they don't want to trust it in a game where they need to win. And I think Hunter Green's going to go out there and do his thing. I think Paul Skeens is going to do his thing no matter what type of, scenario it is. And hopefully we do get that full 5 innings out of him. But I would look at that under of, 3.5. Even, if you can find maybe a 4 with some juice out there, that might be worth it. But I think the under through the first 5 frames is definitely where my money is going in that game.
I think that that's a very good look, and anything else that you're going to be taking a look at on what is going to be a great Baseball Wednesday.
Yeah, no, there are so many fantastic matchups, and we'll see what happens in terms of the Marlins. They're playing some really good baseball, and I do think Ryan Weathers is one of those guys in their rotation that I do like to back, especially against a wild card like a Jesus Luzardo. So go ahead and give me the Marlins on the first 5 money line, potentially even the full game money line, and that's one of the looks that I do think are really viable there on Wednesday.
Ryan Weathers, weathering the storm. He has been a very rock-solid pitcher for the Marlins, a team that has not rolled over quite yet. So we've got a lot of fun out here in baseball. And Rob, you're doing a great job of handicapping it all. You, much like myself, getting set for some great college basketball action. You do a great job on the football front as well. So let the good people at home know what's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Well, hey, Greg, it's been a long season, but it's been a rewarding season, and we're coming to that kind of downhill stretch of everything culminating into a really fun playoff cycle. And for those who want to follow my bets throughout the entire Major League Baseball season as it currently stands, you can do so on Twitter/X at RobDFB, and also on my YouTube channel, which is just my name, Rob Donaldson. But as always, Greg, I appreciate having me on, man.
Always great to have Rob aboard. Every single time he joins me, he lends such amazing insights. He did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we catch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Rob Donaldson, who does such a great job with the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So big thanks to Rob for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Wednesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So let's get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The Nationals, they're going to be on the road facing off against the Atlanta Braves. Andrew Alvarez goes for the Nationals, and Bryce Elder hopes an Alec Elder-Lee for the Braves. The Braves do find themselves as a sizable favorite, -180 to -194. Between +152 to a +160, that number on the Nationals, and the total is 9. With the 9, the over is just of a -115, and the under is a -105, and I'm going to be in on the over in this one. I semi-total at 9.3. Andrew Alvarez had a good, nice few starts at the big league level, got lit up in his last one. I think that he's better than what he showed in his last start where he got completely lit up, and at the same time, I don't think he's quite as good as his 2.84 ERA that he's got. 7.1 strikeouts, 3.3 walks per 9 innings. He's been able to keep the ball in the yard, and he did a relatively good job of that at the minor league level, but I do think that there is a bit of regression coming last start against the Mets. 6 runs, 4 of which were earned in 3 1/3 innings after he gave up a combined 2 runs in his first 3 starts. Think that he gets something in the middle, and for Bryce Elder, I just have not been a believer in this guy all season long. Now, I will say for Bryce Elder, he has looked much better recently. He has given up 2 earned runs or fewer in 5 out of his last 6 starts, and so it's still rocking a 5.36 ERA. Fielding dependent more around a 4.55, 1.3 home runs, 3.1 walks per 9 innings. Not completely atrocious, but he is still facing off against the Washington Nationals team that has been much better with their offense when they have been away from home rather than when they've been at home. For the Washington Nationals, registering fewer than 4 runs per game, more like 4.6 runs per game away from home. And for the Nationals, I mean, it's absolutely wild what we've seen on CJ Abrams, who's been able to supply 18 home runs, sitting in the neighborhood about a 260 this year. 15 of those home runs have come away from home. James Wood continues to give you good wood, about a 340 to a 350 on base. He does have 27 home runs, though many of them came in the first half of the season. They were dealing with Josh Bell being out of the lineup yesterday, so that's a little bit of an issue for this bunch, as The young guys should see some at-bats here. Brady House, Robert Hassel, Andre Shapiro, Dylan Cruz, guys like this. And unfortunately, all four of those guys less than a 300 on base and not a ton of power. Though Dallin Lyle, he's been about a 290. He's really done a nice job for this unit. And for the Atlanta Braves, you've had Matt Olson supply a nice season. He's up to right around about a 360 to a 370 on base, 28 home runs. Marcell Ozuna above a 340 on base. So he's been really lacking in terms of batting average of a 233. And the Michael Harris, 244 average with a 17 home runs doesn't sound bad, but about a 260 on base. That's been a little bit less than savory, but Jurickson Profar, since coming off of suspension, he's been rock solid. What has been a little bit of an ailment this season for the Atlanta Braves has been the bullpen. Raciel Iglesias, so it's been much better. He's been able to now get that ERA down below a 350. It's been a little bit up and down for Dylan Lee, but still it's been relatively solid, and I like what I'm seeing out of Pierce Johnson as well. But these guys like the Dodd father and Dylan Dodd, you don't know what you're going to be able to get there. Hunter Stratton is rocking an ERA above a 5, and on the flip side, the Washington Nationals team dead last in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Like so, Shinkuski, Ogasara, Jackson Rutledge, Mason Thompson, all give you above a 5 ERA. That's not great either, but in the end, I do think that Bryce Elder going to experience a little bit of regression from what we've seen recently. Set by money line price at a plus 155, so seeing that plus 160 in on the Nationals, and I do like this one over. 953, 954 on the card. The Brewers are on the road against the Slam Diego Padres. Dylan Cease is on the bump for the Padres. Quinn Priester goes for the Brewers. Currently no numbers up anywhere on this one. A little bit curious, but I've got my handicap. I'm willing to go 7.5 for less to the over, 8 or higher to the under, so I might tell it 7.7. And with the Padres, made them a minus 134 favorite. Willing to lay up to a minus 133 there, plus 135 or better. Going to be in on the Brewers. For Quinn Priester, I believe that he's doing for a little negative regression, and for Dylan Cease, I believe that he's doing for a little bit of positivity. With Dylan Cease, it's been a rough year from 464 ERA, but still give you a 364 fielding dependent, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. The 3.8 walks per 9 innings are still an issue. He's always had his walks issues, giving up 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Not necessarily great either, and for Dylan Cease, it's been up and down and wobbly, but 2 runs of fear allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts. And then for Quinn Priester, he just continues to find a way to induce soft contact. He's only given up 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, 7.5 strikeouts per 9, 325 ERA, but a 408 fielding dependent. He has given up a grand total of 6 earned runs over the course of his last 4 starts and 7 earned runs over the course of his last 5, so he comes in incredibly hot. You look at what Priester has been able to do at home versus on the road, and he's actually been quite a bit better when he has been on the road, giving you about a 291 ERA, but again, still not getting a lot of strikeouts, only 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings away from home. Facing off against the Padres unit where the power has really not been there. They're actually a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, but on any given night, they could throw out their all 9 starters, give you at least a 250 batting average, with Freddie Fermin being able to shore up the catcher spot. You've had Manny Machado supply 26 home runs, hitting at 275. Fernando Tatis Jr., 23 plus home runs. He's been able to do a nice job, move the line with about a 350 or so with his on base. Ramon Laureano, overall for the season, nearly a 350 on base. He's up to 23 home runs. So I think you've got some firepower here. Gavin Sheets, hitting for about a 255, 19 home runs. These guys have been very rock solid. What has been, though, really the main strength of the San Diego Padres, this bullpen. Number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. So many guys like Jason Adam, Andre Morejon, Bradley Rodriguez, hopefully I said that correct, even the likes of a Rod Medanaccio, Mason Miller, all these guys are right now giving you an ERA below a 225. David Morgan is at a 280 ERA. Robert Suarez has been a little bit shaky, but still has been relatively solid. And for the Brewers, this has been one of the better bullpens of the big leagues as well. They took a little bit of a setback when they did have to put Trevor McGill on the injured list, but still, you've got a lot of guys that are coming through and doing a nice job for this team. Rob Zanoski, Aaron Ashby, Abner Uribe, Jerry Koenig, all give you a sub 3 ERA. Grant Anderson has been pretty rock solid as well. And for the Brewers, right now they lead the National League in run creation away from home with about 5.4 runs per game, and it's not necessarily due to firepower and home run power. You've got Christian Yelich at 29 home runs, about a 345 on base, and he's the lone guy on the roster with over 20 home runs. You just have a bunch of other guys, though, that they just find a way on. Andrew Marisario, Jake Bowers, Caleb Durbin, Sal Frelick, William Contreras, Isaac Collins, in a Brewers uniform and a Brewers uniform only, Andrew Vaughn, Bryce Terang, all these guys, at least at 339 on base. Now they're getting Reese Hoskins back in the fold as well for a little bit of power. Jackson Trio, he is up to 20 home runs. He's not necessarily giving you a ton of on base, so it's a very interesting circumstance. I do, though, think that Cease gives you a good start, so So 7.5 or less, I'm in on the over. 8 or higher to the under with the Brewers plus 135 or better. We'll be looking at them minus 133 or better. The Padres, 955, 956 on the card. It is the Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati, playing us to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Paul Skeens goes for the Buccos. Hunter Green is on the bump for the Reds. Reds are between a minus 114 to a minus 121 favorite. Right around even money to minus 102 is that number on Pittsburgh. 7 is total. Over and under both at minus 110 and made a total of 6.8. I like the under. You've got two guys who have just been two of the best pitchers in the National League this year. Obviously, we all know what we've been able to get out of Paul Skeens this year. 2.05 ERA, about 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up only a half home run per 9 innings. That has been incredibly rock solid. That said, you take a look at what we've been able to get on the flip side for Hunter Green, and this guy has been absolutely magnificent at home. Like, the overall season numbers are really good for Hunter Green. 2.74 ERA, 11.1 strikeouts, and 2.1 walks allowed per 9 innings. But when he is at home, he has given up 2 runs or fewer in all 10 of his starts thus far this season, a sub-2 ERA at home, and he faces off against a Pittsburgh Pirates lineup that is dead last in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per-at-bat basis. They're dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game with about 3.6, as you got 3 guys on the roster, Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Oneil Cruz, with over 10 home runs this season, and Cruz is full of a cavalcade of different guys that have just not been able to hit this year. He, Cam Devaney, Henry Davis, along with Jack Swiniski, Lovar Piguero, Nick Yorkie. Just go down the list of guys hitting at 220 or lower for this team. It's absolutely terrible. And with Cincinnati Reds, it's not like the lineup has been special. They're now getting a little bit more home run pop. Spencer Sears up to 21 bombs. Ellie De La Cruz is up to 20. But I think just a lot of guys in general that are moving the line. They pick up Brian Haynes, ironically enough, from the Pirates. He's been able to give them above at 320 on base. And then you've got the likes of Navoli Marte of the Marte Parte, Ellie De La Cruz, CJ Friedel, Gavin Lux, all hitting at least a 257 for Marte. He's up to 13 home runs, so he's been able to do a rock solid job there. And then when it comes to these two bullpens, both of them do have their issues. So for the Pirates, you've had Dennis Santana and Isaac Madsen be able to give you sub 3 ERA. Dory Moretta has been solid as well, but when you get into the likes of Colin Holderman and company, it's been a little bit sketchy there. And for the Reds, they do have their fair share of guys who are posting up an ERA well above a 4, as you've had that out of Brent Suter. They've now converted Chase Burns into the bullpen. Scott Barlow has been a little bit shaky, but Tony Santana, Emilio Pagan have been pretty solid. And Connor Phillips has been able to give you about a 3.05 ERA as well. So interesting circumstance. I think that you're going to get a really nice pitcher's duel here. I said my total 6.8. I like the under. And for the Pirates, I just don't think that they provide any offensive help for Paul Skeens. I set the Reds at a minus 142, so I like the Reds money line, and I do like this under. 957, 958 on the card. The Miami Marlins are on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils, and Ryan Weathers hopes to weather the storm for Miami. Miami does find themselves as an underdog, plus 168 to a plus 184, minus 205 to minus 220. That number on the Phillies, 8.5 is the total, with the over anywhere between a minus 110 to even money, minus 110 to minus 120 is that number on the under. And right now, that Phillies run line, I'm seeing it at a plus 102, seeing some minus 102s out there as well. And I'd be willing to go up to a minus 113 with regards to this run line. So I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, you take a look at Jesus Luzardo, and it's been a little bit of an up-down all-around season for him, as if you look ever since May 30th, because first 2 months of the season, it looked like he was going to be a fringe Cy Young candidate. Well, he then gives up that 12 spot. He actually gave up a combined 20 runs over the course of 2 starts. He has an ERA pretty much of a 5 ever since then, and he has given up 4+ runs in 3 out of his last 5 starts, but still, he's giving you a 301 field independent. He's not giving up the deep ball, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. He's been able to get 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings as well, so I do think that there is quite a bit of positivity that is going to be coming for him. And when it comes to Jesus Luzardo, he gets a face-off against the Miami Marlins team that they don't have a lot of home run pop, but they're actually in the top 5 of the big leagues in terms of run creation away from home. With Miami, it's one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. That's why they're in the bottom 2 in the National League in terms of runs per game when they're at home, and then when they're away from home, they have been a top 5 team in the big leagues. So that's been a big giant divide there. Augustin Ramirez, though, is the lone guy on the roster right now that's giving you 15+ home runs, because Kyle Stowers is on the injured list with Ramirez. 21 home runs, but only about a 291 on base. And then Otto Lopez is at 15 home runs. He's been able to about a 250, and you do have quite a few guys in that neighborhood of like a 243 to a 256. Javier Sonja, Connor Norby, Liam Hicks has been able to give you about a 345 on base. These These guys have been relatively solid. They've had Xavier Edwards in and out of the lineup, but he should be back for the final week of the season, so that helps them out a little bit. For the Miami Marlins, it's been a little bit up, down, all around with regards to bullpen, but long guys have been able to do a relatively solid job for the team. Anthony Bender has dealt with a little bit of injury, but got the likes of Kay Gibson, Ronnie Enriquez, Tyler Phillips, who have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, Calvin Fauché, in the back half, more of a 3.40 ERA as a one-inning guy. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, certainly this bullpen has had some trials and tribulations, but picking up Yohan Duran at the trade deadline was very big, especially with Jose Alvarado just being a flop coming off of the suspended list. Not like they would be able to use him in the postseason anyway, but still, that was a little bit of a sad situation. But Matt Strahm, Ryan Kirkering, Tanner Banks, these guys have been able to give you sub 3.35 ERA. And then for this Philadelphia Phillies team, actually a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from them, but at home nearly 5.5 runs per game. That is a top 2 mark in all of baseball. Nick Castellanos not necessarily having an amazing season with 17 home runs at just a 298 on base, and Trey Turner down for what being on the injured list hurts, but now you get back Alec Boehm, who's been able to hit 280, and then Kyle Schwarber, he's been hitting Schwarber bombs all season long, 367 on base, 53 home runs. Bryce Harper, he's been able to give you 27 home runs, and you look at what Harper has been able to do ever since the All-Star break, because he spent the first half of the season very much banged up and injured, but 17 home runs ever since the All-Star break with about 340 on base, you'll certainly take that. And Brandon Marsh post All-Star break has been hitting above a 300 as well. And ever since they picked up Harrison Bader, he's been able to give them a 390 on base. So a lot of these guys are coming to the forefront, and they do face a guy in Ryan Weathers who I believe he's actually got a lot of upside. Spent much of the season on the injured list, so that was a little bit unfortunate for him. But that said, with Ryan Weathers, not necessarily like a strikeout artist, but he's really worked on his strikeout stuff ever since he came over from the San Diego Padres. About 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 2.5 walks per 9, 321 ERA compared to a 395 fielding dependent in his 2 starts since coming off of the injured list. A combined 9 innings, giving up 3 runs. So I think that'll be something relatively ho-hum year, but I do think that the Phillies get to heat and the bullpen, so I set my total at 8.6, like the over, and up to a minus 112 on that Phillies run line. 959, 960 on the card. It is the New York Mets on the road against the Chicago Cubs. We do know that Matthew Boyd is going to be on the bump for the Cubs. It should be Jonah Tong going for the Mets, but that is a little bit TBD, and that's why this game is presently off the board. Now, if you look at the win situation in Wrigley, this is a big reason why I set a total personally to where a 6.5 or less I'll be in on the over, a 7 or higher to the under, blowing in at about 12 to 14 miles per hour. So it is very much going to be pitching conditions here, whether you get Tong or someone else for the New York Mets. And if you do indeed get Jonah Tong, he's been a really nice strikeout artist, both at the minor league level and the big league level. I'm not going to go overly far on him since he's not confirmed yet, but I would be very surprised if he does not go. But 11.3 strikeouts per 9 innings in his 4 starts for the Mets. Problem is, he's been giving up about 3.8 walks and 1.6 home runs per 9 innings after he just completely dominated at the minor league level. And if you do get someone like a Clay Holmes, who I believe pitched in long relief a few days ago, probably would be something similar here. They might be looking to piggyback because the Mets actually now very much need these games, because we thought that they had a playoff spot sewn up, but they decided not to win games against the Washington Nationals at home over the weekend. So there's that aspect of things. And Matthew Boyd comes in relatively rough form as well. He's given up 4+ runs in now 5 out of his last 6 starts. He's posting up for the season a 320 ERA, 360 fielding dependent. He's getting hurt by the fact that he's pitching to more contact than he ever has in his career. So 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, he's doing a nice job of not beating himself. 2.1 walks, 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but certainly this has been a little bit of a rough run. And even in the New York Mets rough run, it's not really been because of the lineup. The lineup has actually been much better recently. Mark Vientos, I recognize, has went a little bit cold here over the last week and a half or so, but he's still been able to supply the team 15+ home runs. He's been improving that batting average, and then you got a quartet of guys with at least 24 home runs. Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, and Juan Soto. And Soto, 42 bombs, 400 on base. He's been amazing. Pete Alonso, 350 on base, 37 home runs. Lindor, he was dealing with some lower body injuries towards the middle part of the season. He's starting to pick it up, and getting back Francisco Alvarez, not a ton of power, but a guy that's giving you a 340 on base at the catcher spot, that helps out as well. But this Mets bullpen has been a disaster. Gregory Soto, I knew that was not going to work out, but Ryan Helsley, he's been posting up an ERA like above a 6 ever since the team picked him up. That's not been great, to say the least. least. Now, Chris Davinsky, Edwin Diaz, these guys have been relatively rock solid. Throw in there Tyler Rogers. They're supplying a sub 3 ERA. Brooks Raley has been pretty solid as well, but now we've seen Oscar Brazobin start to poop the bed. You've had some big giant issues with regards to some of these guys like a Reed Garrett as well. And on the other end for the Chicago Cubs, I know that they've been dealing with the injury to Daniel Palencia, but I mean, this overall has been a bullpen that has been able to do a relatively solid job all season long. The likes of a Drew Pomeranz, Caleb Theobar, Brad Keller have been able to give you an ERA below a 3. They've been doing a nice job mixing and matching with some of these long guys as well, so I do think that they're going to be able to hold down the fort there, and I do think that they should be a nice size favorite. Like I said, 6.5 or less in on the over 7 or higher, the under. With the Cubs, 1 to lay up to a minus 146 on that money line, plus 148 or better. The Mets, 961, 962 on the card. The years and the Diamondbacks play out the LA Dodgers. Blake Snell is on the bump for the Dodgers. Ryan Nelson goes for the Saints, and the Saints are an underdog of between plus 128 to a plus 134. Meanwhile, minus 155 to a minus 160. That number on the Dodgers, with 8.5 being the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And if you're looking to lay a run F with the Dodgers, that's currently a plus 112, and I'm going to be looking to do so. I was willing to take a plus 108 or better with regards to Los Angeles with Blake Snell. It certainly has been a wobbly sort of season for him because he's just dealt with so many injuries, but when Blake Snell's been able to get out there, he's been pretty darn solid. 3 runs or fewer allowed in all but one of his 10 starts as far this season. The walks are still an issue, 4.1 walks per 9 innings, but not giving up the deep ball at all. He has given up just 3 home runs in 55 and a third innings, 10.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and he's giving length over 5 innings in 4 out of his last 5 starts. That's big because this has been a Dodgers bullpen that's been in the lower half of the big leagues in terms of ERA all season long. Now, you do get Kirby Yates, Tanner Scott off the injury list, but both of these guys rocking an ERA above a 375. Blake Trinan has been surprisingly shaky as well. It's been the guys like Jack Dreyer, Alex Vesey have really stepped up in the bullpen. Both of these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA for the Dodgers. They're looking to just slug their way to victory because they do have a top 3 offense in terms of run creation, even with Will Smith getting jiggy with it on the injury list. Got Shohei Ohtani up to 53 home runs with a 395 on base. Andy Paez has been able to supply 25 bombs, hitting at 280. Tasker Hernandez, 24 home runs, albeit the on-base percentage not great at a 284, but still holding it down there. It's been a rough season for Michael Conforto, Kike Hernandez, guys like this in the infield, but still, it's been solid, and Conforto is out there in left field, so just want to make sure of that. But that said, Hyesung Kim coming back, he's been able to give this team right around about a 280 or so average. Hasn't been quite himself since coming off the injury list, but he's been a welcome addition. And then on the other end for the Arizona Diamondbacks, I talked about the woes that you've got in the bullpen of the LA Dodgers. Well, you've got that times like 3 for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Andrew Saalfrank has been solid. He's been able to give the team a sub-3 ERA, but then other than that, I really don't have too much with this team, as John Curtis with 2 S's, Jalen Beeks, the off and on injured Justin Martinez between about a 370 and a 315 ERA, and then the likes of Taylor Rashi, whenever they've utilized him out of the bullpen, Anthony DeSclafani, Jake Woodford, so many guys with an ERA above a 5, but even though the team trades away and Eugenio Suarez along Josh Naylor at the trade deadline, this has still been an offense that has been in the top 8 in the big leagues in terms of run creation. Corbin Carroll, 31 home runs, hitting about a 260. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte and Geraldo Perdomo are both above a 375 with regards to their on-base. Marte has really slowed down with his home run power over the last few weeks, but still, he's at 25 home runs for the season. Then getting off the injured list, Gabriel Moreno has been big, hitting for about a 350 on base. And keep in mind, Diamondbacks still alive for a playoff spot. They've been mixing and matching with some of these young guys. Blaze Alexander, about a 325 on base, so makes it a very interesting circumstance here with a guy in Ryan Nelson that has been able to do a nice job of not beating himself. Not a guy that's gonna blow you away and give you a bunch of strikeouts, between about 7.5 to 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, whereas where he's been sitting all season long, but 2.5 walks, 1 home run allowed per 9 innings, 334 ERA, about a 380 fielding independent, having given up 300 runs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts, and 7 total runs. So I do think that for the Diamondbacks, they're going to be able to hold in there, but in the end, I do think that Blake Snell does a relatively solid job here, and I do think that that bullpen of the Diamondbacks is going to be a pretty large issue. So I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Dodgers on the run line, and did set my total at 8.6, so here at the 8.5, I do like the over. 963, 964 on the card. The St. Louis Cardinals are on the road against the San Francisco Giants. Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another start, and Sonny Gray goes for the St. Louis Cardinals. Cardinals are between plus 102 to plus 110 underdogs. Minus 120 to minus 135 is that number on San Francisco with a total 7.5. Unders between minus 110 to a minus 115. Overs between minus 105 to a minus 110. And when it comes to Robbie Ray and the Giants, I set them at a minus 137. So I'm going to be willing to lay that money line. Now, Robbie Ray coming in bad form. He has given up 4+ runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts. That said, he gets to face off against the Cardinals team that's dead stinking last in the big leagues in terms of run creation ever since the All-Star break. And for Robbie Ray, the overall season numbers still relatively solid. 3.65 ERA, 3.94 fielding dependent, 9.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, only allowing about 1.1 home runs per 9 as well. And pitching out there at Oracle Park, that really helps him out because it's one of the best pitcher-friendly ballparks in all baseball. Actually has a little bit of a higher ERA when he's at home rather than away from home, but that home runs per 9 rate is sub 0.8. And then for Sonny Gray, it has been a miserable second half of the season for him. As for Sonny Gray, overall for the campaign, a 4.33 ERA, but a fielding independent of a 3.38. 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. He's getting 10 strikeouts, so 1.9 walks per 9. On the surface, that's relatively solid, but he has not been the same pitcher away from home, posting up an ERA that's right around about a 5, with a home run and a half allowed per 9 innings away from home at post-All-Star break. 1.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings, a 5.67 ERA, and that's a sample size of 12 starts. Now, he is backed up by a bullpen that has been in the top 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERAs. You've had a lot of guys step up ever since they traded away Ryan Helsley, and they should be feeling good that they traded away Ryan Helsley at this point because you've had the likes of Matt Savanson, Jojo Romero, Riley O'Brien. These guys be able to pick it up, give you a sub-3 25 ERA. You've been able to get some relatively good innings out of Kyle Leahy as well. And then on the other end for the San Francisco Giants, it continues to be a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA, but the Randy Rodriguez injury hurts them. Obviously, they trade away the likes of Tyler Rogers and Camilo Udval, so they've really relied heavily on Joey Lucchesi and Yoel Piguero. Both of these guys have been able to give you sub 3.25 ERA, and then we have seen the likes of Jose Buto and company have a little bit of a pitfall recently, but for the San Francisco Giants, offense is starting to pick it up a little bit. I recognize that for Rafael Devers, it's been a little bit of a shaky last few weeks, but ever since he's come over to the team, he's been able to splice and boom, 18 home runs, about a 344 on base. And then you've got Eloy Ramos along with Jungle Lee, both hitting about a 260. Ramos is up to 19 home runs. Matt Chapman, not hitting for a ton of average at a 232, but 21 home runs, 340 on base. You do like to see that. The entire catcher spot has been rough for this team, and then whenever you're trotting out there some of these, shall we say, mix and match guys like a Drew Gilbert, it's been a little bit less than amazing. But I do think that for Robbie Ray, goes out there, gives a relatively good start, and I think that Sonny Gray sees some positivity here with this being such a pitcher-friendly ballpark. So did somebody tell 7.4? I like the under, and I do like the Giants up to a minus 136 on that money line. 965, 966 on the card. The Rays are going to be on the road against the Baltimore Orioles. Tyler Wells hopes to pitch. Wells for Baltimore, and the Wizard of Boz, Shane Baz, is on the bump for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is in a relatively picked-up game. They're anywhere between minus 108 to a minus 113. Between minus 107 to minus 110 is that number on Baltimore. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And with Baltimore, I did set them on the money line at a minus 132. I'm going to be willing to lay it. I just don't trust in Shane Baz whatsoever. Now, for Baz, he has been quite a bit better when he has been away from home rather than at home, as just feels like he's a fish out of water, for lack of a better term, whenever he's out there in Tampa Bay, with Steinbrenner Field being the new home for them this season. But that said, 4.99 ERA overall. He is getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 1.4 home runs allowed per 9 innings, about 3.4 walks per 9 as well. Now, again, you go to those road sets, closer to a 4.05 ERA on the road, and on the road he's giving up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but still has been a bit less than savory. And for Tyler Wells, I know there's been a small sample size of 3 starts, but 4 runs allowed in 17 and 2/3 innings. The strikeout stuff has not been supreme, and he has given up 3 home runs in these 3 starts, but you know what, you do like what you're seeing there. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, I do think that they're going to help him experience a little bit of, shall we say, negative regression, because you got a guy in Junior Caminero who I don't think that he's going to be able to get the 50 home run season that I was looking for. He's at 44 bombs, but I mean, still, he and Brandon Lowe both hitting about a 260. Loud has been able to get loud with his 30 home runs. Yandy Diaz, he's hitting above a 330 since the beginning of the month of June. 25 bombs, 370 on base. He has been so impressive, but you do have a few guys, the shortstop spot and the catcher spot specifically, that have been albatrosses. You have not been able to get a lot out of Christopher Morel as well, but Chandler Simpson's hitting at 300 with 43 stolen bases. Jake Magnum, 26 stolen bases. He's hitting hitting darn near 300 as well. So this team does a nice job of being able to get the guys in motion. And for the Rays, since the beginning of the month of July, this has been a top 8 unit with regards to their bullpen ERA. I know it's been a little bit up and down for some of these guys, but likes of a Pete Fairbanks, Eric Gores, Garrett Clevenger, I've been able to give you a sub 335 ERA. They've got Cole Sulzer being able to give them more like a 225 ERA. And the biggest kryptonite that you do have with this Baltimore Orioles team, the bullpen has been absolutely atrocious for them thus far this season, as likes of Corbin Martin, Yarmil Hidalgo, Grant Wolfram, Yennier Cano, all posting up an ERA above a 4 has been a little bit less than amazing, though you've been able to have Dietrich N, since he came over from the Tigers, be relatively solid in a Orioles uniform. He and Rico Garcia, a sub 350 ERA. And for the Orioles, they're in the bottom 2 in the American League in terms of run creation away from home, other 4 runs per game, more like 4.45 runs per game when they are at home. You've had quite a few guys have their struggles this far this season. Tyler O'Neill, Kobe Mayo, Dylan Carlson, all in below a 215. You're currently dealing with Jordan Westberg being on the injured list, Adley Rushman being on the injured list, with Jackson Holiday, Gunnar Henderson really being the main constants for this offense, with Henderson 350 on base, 16 home runs, 17 bombs out of Jackson Holiday, but able to have some of the young guys step up, as you've got Dylan Beavers give you about a 400 on base. Jeremiah Jackson has been able to hit for about a 285 home runs, about 160 at bats, so not supreme power, but some relatively solid power. I do think, though, in the end, Tyler Walls does give a good start, and the team gets to the Wizard of Oz, semi-total 9.3, so I do like the over, and I do like the Orioles on the money line, 967, 968 on the card. The Detroit Tigers are on the road. They're facing off against the Cleveland Guardians. Tanner Bybee goes for Cleveland, and Captain Jack Flaherty is on the bump for Detroit. And Detroit does find themselves as a just very small underdog, anywhere between even money to a minus 102. Meanwhile, minus 117 to a minus 120 is that number on Cleveland, with a total of 7.5. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 120, and the under is between even and minus 110. And I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. I did set my total at a 7.9. Fully recognize that this is a Cleveland Guardians team that is second worst in the big leagues in terms of run creation at home. They are putting up only about 3.8 runs per game, so that's been a little bit less than amazing. But for Jack Flaherty, he's just given up the deep ball thus far this season. For Flaherty, he's getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but when you're giving up over 1.3 home runs per 9 innings, that's a big giant issue for Flaherty. The command has been a little bit all over the place as well, about 3.4 walks per 9 innings. Has been a little bit better recently, 0-1 runs allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts, but certainly for Flaherty, he's had some issues this season when he's been on the road, a 520 road ERA, so that's not what you want to see. And the Cleveland Guardians do have the leg up with regards to bullpen as well. For the Guardians, they entered into the day on Tuesday, top 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Even though Hunter Gaddis and Cade Smith has been a little bit up and down, both of these guys are still giving an ERA that is a sub 335, and then Eric Zabrowski has been really good with about a 2 ERA. Jacob Junis has become a good long guy, along with Kobe Allard as well. And for the Detroit Tigers, it's been a case where Tommy Kahnle just has not been great in this bullpen, to say the least. They've had Tyler Holton not necessarily live up to expectations as well, but they've done a nice job of finding someone like a Bailey Horn who's been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. You've been able to get good production recently out of the likes of a Troy Melton, who's been a long guy. He and Brian Herter are giving you a sub 3 ERA. Brendan Hennefy has been pretty solid as well. And just top to bottom, with regards to this Detroit Tigers lineup, you've got consistency. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson combined 65 home runs between these two guys. Green is hitting about a 260, Torkelson more than neighborhood of a 245, but then you do have just a lot of guys in the neighborhood of, we're going to call it about a 248 to a 261. Gleyber Torres, Zach McKinstry, Kerry Carpenter, Javi Baez, Wencio Perez, Cole Keith, and pretty much everyone other than Kerry Carpenter has given you between about 11 to 16 home runs. With Carpenter, he's up to 26 bombs. For the Guardians, this has been a bottom half of the lineup that has not been great, to say the least. Jose Ramirez has been very good, 360 on base, 30 home runs. And Colin Manzardo, not necessarily the world's greatest on base at about a 317, but 26 home runs. Stephen Kwan is hitting about a 275, but man, when you do get down to the bottom of the lineup, Daniel Schneemann, David Fry, John Kenzie Noel, Austin Hedges, whenever he gets started, CJ Kafis, all these guys hitting at 212 or lower, that's been a little bit less than amazing. And for Tanner Bybee, it has been a season that has left quite a bit of something to be desired. He's getting a career high, only about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, but he's been able to do a much better job when he has been at home rather than away from home. For Mr. Tanner Bybee, he's down to about a 325 ERA when he's at home. He's been giving up less than a home run per 9 innings. I do think that he excels here. Did set my total 7.9. I think that the Guardians get to Flaherty, so at a 7.5, I'm in on the over. And I do like the Guardians on the money line. I did set them here at a minus minus 119. 969, 970 on the card. It is the White Sox on the road against the New York Yankees. Max Fried is on the bump for the Yankees. Right now it is to be determined on the bump for the White Sox. That's why this game is off the board. Now the CBS projection was Tyler Alexander. That pretty much tells me a mix and match bullpen game for the White Sox is looming. So set the Yankees at a minus 316 on the money line. Willing to go up to a minus 148 on the run line. We'll need at least a plus 317 to take a shot on the White Sox. And then set a total to where it 8 or less. I'm in on the over 8.5 or higher. The under I semi-tell at an 8.4. Now credit where it is due. You've got a White Sox lineup that ever since the All-Star break, they've actually been a top 9 team in terms of run creation. Edgar Quiero, Kyle Teal at the catcher spot have both been hitting above a 275. You've been able to find some power with Colson Montgomery, Lennon Sosa, Andrew Benintendi, all supplying at least 18 home runs. Miguel Vargas has also been able to give you 15 home runs, but a lot of inconsistency with regards to batting average. Luis Robert, he's been a little bit banged up. He's on the injured list, so that hurts to see him a little bit, but not like he was doing a ton. Michael A. Taylor, he's hitting right at the Mendoza line of 200 as well, so had a little bit of an up-down all-around team there. And for Max Fried, I know that things got very wobbly from in July and August, but he has really been able to refine it. Once again, he's been pitching to a little bit of contact for what you'd expect out of an ace pitcher. 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, not bad, but not necessarily blowing guys away. But 0.7 home runs, 2.3 walks allowed per 9 innings has really been able to straighten it out there. He's given up a combined 7 runs over the course of his last 5 starts, and he is backed up by a bullpen that has been less than tremendous. Let's call it what it is. Luke Weaver, ever since coming off the injury list, along with Yuri De Los Santos, these guys have really seen their ERAs balloon. David Bednar has really been your best reliever for this team over the last month and a half since getting to New York. He's posting up a sub 275 ERA, but Devin Williams posting up over a 5 ERA. Mark Leiter Jr. These guys have been far from amazing. For the Yankees, though, you do have a lineup that has 1 through 9 pretty much give you 19 home runs this season. Now, Anthony Volpe, along with Austin Wells, both give you less than a 275 on base. You need a little bit more of them, but Aaron Judge is judge, jury, and executioner. 49 home runs, a 450 on base. Cody Bellinger has been able to give you 28 plus home runs. He's done a nice job being able to supply about a 275 with regards to that average. And Trent Grisham, ever since the All-Star break, he's hit 16 plus home runs. He's up over 30 home runs thus far this season. Giancarlo Stanton, he's been able to give you a home run every about 10 and a half or so at bats. He's been able to do a nice job, move the line as well. And if you do indeed get Tyler Alexander, he's been posting up an ERA right around a 4. Mike Vasil has been a long guy that has been reliable for this team, and I do think that we're going to see a little bit of Mike Vasil in this game, as he's been a guy that they've been utilizing for like 3, sometimes even as much as 4 innings. They experimented with him as a starter, but they decided to punt on that experiment as it was not necessarily going the world's greatest. But that said, you do have a few other guys that have been a little bit shaky for this team, the likes of Tyler Gilbert, Brandon Iser, Jordan Leisure. All these guys give you a 350 ERA or better. We'll give Leisure a little bit of credit. He's been a bit better here recently, but Cam Bouger, not necessarily been great to say the least. So did set the Yankees as a very sizable favorite. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 148 on that run line. With the White Sox, I would need at least a plus 318 to be willing to take a shot there, and then set a total to where an 80 or less. I'm in on the over 8.5 or higher. The under 971, 972 on the card. The Boston Red Sox are on the road. They're facing off against the Toronto Blue Jays. Max Scherzer is on the bump for the Jays, and Garrett Crochet goes for Boston. Boston is a favorite of any between minus 139 to a minus 144. Between plus 115 to a plus 120 is that number on Toronto. 7.5 is the total in some spots. I'm seeing some 8s out there as well. On the 8, the under is minus 120, and the over is even. On the 7.5, over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And when it comes to the Boston Red Sox, set them at a minus 142 on the money line, so I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 141, as Garrett Crochet is just putting together a really nice season. And for Garrett Crochet, he has been at his best when he has been on the road this far this season. Just everything about him has been rock solid. 269 ERA, 295 fielding dependent. He's given up 1.1 home runs to 2.1 walks per 9 innings, 11.4 strikeouts per 9. Now, he has given up 3 plus runs in 3 out of his last 4 starts, so we've seen a little bit of shakiness here recently. But again, with Garrett Crochet, the fact that on the road he's got a 2.42 ERA with about 0.75 home runs allowed per 9 innings, that really stands out for me. And for Max Scherzer, he's been still able to give you some solid strikeouts. He's not the guy that he once was a few years ago, but 8.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's just been really hurt by the deep ball. 2 home runs per 9 innings, so 5.06 ERA, 5.08 fielding independent, and he's had his issues recently. 4 plus runs allowed in 5 of his last 5 starts. Now, he does face off against the Boston Red Sox lineup that they've been not necessarily providing a lot in terms of the deep ball. They are getting now Weiler Abreu back in the fold, and for Abreu, he's been able to give you 20 plus home runs along with Trevor Story. And dealing with the injury to Roman Anthony has been a little bit less than amazing, but there's just a lot of guys in general for this team. And we're going to call it about a 252, 264. I mentioned Abreu, Lon Trevor Story, Jarren Duran, Nick Sogard, Masataka Yoshida. These guys have all been able to do a nice job, move the line, getting on base. Alex Bregman has not given you a lot of power, but still about a 365 on base. You've been able to have Robert Snyder hit a 275, and for the Red Sox, this is a top 5 unit in terms of opening rate. Aroldis Chapman has been the best closer in all baseball thus far this season. A 121 ERA. He's been able to supply 12.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and then Justin Wilson, Garrett Whitlock, Greg Weissert. These guys have been able to give you a sub 315 ERA as well. Lots of guys locking it down, and for the Toronto Blue Jays, ever since the All-Star break, they have been a bottom 10 team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Like, you got a lot of guys that overall for the season have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. Brandon Little, Uriel Rodriguez, Braden Fisher, but they've been really experiencing those issues in the second half of the season. Sergio Dominguez about 326 ERA since the team picked him up. He hasn't been too bad, but that is something that you need to be cautious of. That said, with the Blue Jays, ever since the All-Star break, they've been averaging over 5.4 runs per game, right there at the top of the American League. George Springer has been able to supply 30 home runs with a 395 on base. Viger Jr., he's not necessarily been able to supply as much power as he has in the past, 23 home runs, but still, he's been able to give you about a 300 average, so do have to like what you're seeing there. Edison Barger is up to 20 home runs, and it's been a case where Dalton Varsho has not hit for a lot of average, only about a 286 on base, but he's giving you a home run every about 12 or so bats as well. And then Bo Bichette, he's hitting above a 300. He's been able to give you 18 home runs, so very interesting circumstance here. I did my total between a 7.5 to an 8. We are mostly seeing 8s, but personally, I would rather have a 7.5 over rather than an 8 under, so I'm going to be trying to get a 7.5 over, and with the Red Sox, set them at a minus 142, so I'm going to be willing to lay their money line. 973, 974 on the betting board. It is the Twins, and they hit the road. They're facing off against the Walker Texas Rangers. Jacob deGrom is on the bump for the Rangers, and Taj Junko and Milton Bradley hoping to not play games with us for Minnesota. 7.5 is the total, over is minus 120. The under is even with Texas. They're back to being a massive favorite between minus $2 to minus 215, and between plus 170 to plus 180. Then around Minnesota, if you're looking to lay a run half with the Texas Rangers, the initial FanDuel opener on the run line is a plus 112. I doubt if we're going to be able to get a plus 112 when it's all said and done, but you know what? I'm going to be willing to take that run line. I was willing to lay up to a minus 110, and for Jacob deGrom, I recognize that there's been a little bit of shakiness here with him here in the second half of the season, mainly because he has been giving up a tad bit more of the deep ball than what you're used to seeing Jacob deGrom. For deGrom, 301 ERA compared to a 367 field independent, 9.5 strikeouts, 1.9 walks per 9 innings, but again, those 1.3 home runs per 9, it's a big reason why he's given up 3+ runs in each out of his last 3 starts, as he's given up 5 home runs in that time span. That said, he has been able to do a pretty rock solid job when he's been at home. A lot of his issues have been when he has been hitting the road. 239 home ERA, and at home he's giving up closer to 1 home run per 9 innings. And for Taj Bradley, it just has not worked out for him, whether it be with the Rays, whether it be with the Twins. And like 2 to 3 years ago, I really thought he had some upside. Ever since he's gone to Minnesota, it just has not been great, to say the least. Right now, rocking a 7.84 ERA since he got to the Minnesota Twins. For Bradley, he was always a relatively good swing and miss guy as well when he was with the Tampa Bay Rays. That has just completely fallen off a cliff this year, both between his time with the Rays and the Minnesota Twins. 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, giving up 3.6 walks per 9 as well, and just 3+ runs allowed in 4 out of his 5 appearances with the Minnesota Twins. That speaks to it. He does get to go up against a Rangers team that's very banged up. Corey Seager being on the injury list, dealing with the Marcus Semien injury. That's not great. Somehow, some way, this has been a Rangers team that since the beginning of the month of July, they're still registering about 4.8 runs per game. They've been able to get quite a bit more out of Kyle Higashioka here in the second half of the season. Jake Berger, since he's come off the injury list, has been able to above a 300 as well. And then that Wyatt Langford be able to step up, be the main catalyst in terms of the power. And then the Joshes, Josh Young along with Josh Smith, both hitting about a 250 to 255. Jock Peters, since coming off the injury list, has been better as well. Frankly, he couldn't have been any worse prior to him going on the injury list, but still, he's given the team a little bit more production here over the last 30 to so days, so that's been very welcome. And for the Minnesota Twins, you've got a team that's able to hit the deep ball, but they don't have a lot of guys move the line getting on base. It's been a completely lost season for Royce Lewis. Now, Lucas Shield, ever since he's come up to the big league level, has been hitting about a 300, but then you've got someone like a Brooks Lee with less than a 300 on base, but it's giving you 16 home runs. You've got Cody Clemens, 19 home runs, hitting for a 215, less than a 290 on base. It's been a case where Byron Buxton has been the main constant, about 330 on base, 31 home runs. Trevor Larnach, when he's been out there, he's been a little bit in and out of the lineup. He's been rock solid, and they just landed Matt Wallner on the injury list. Wallner was giving you about 20 plus home runs, but was also hitting right around the middle of the line, 200 as well. So that was a little bit of an issue. And for the Minnesota Twins, bigger issue, this bullpen. They traded away everyone at the deadline. Now you're relying upon the likes of Cole Sands, Michael Tonkin. They were relying upon Justin Topa, but he hits the injury list. Cody Funderburk, Genesis Cabrera. All these guys are giving you an ERA that is well above a 4. And for the Rangers, this is still a nice, steady bullpen. I recognize that ever since they picked up Danny Kaluuya, he hasn't necessarily been the world's greatest for this team, but still the likes of Phil Matone, Sean Armstrong, Robert Garcia being able to give you a sub-325 ERA for the season has been relatively solid. So circumstance where with the Texas Rangers, I'm willing to lay up to a -110 on the run line, and I do think that they do a nice solid job of getting to Mr. Taj Bradley. I did somebody tell it at 8.1, so I'm also in on the over. 975, 976 on the card. It is the Royals, and they're facing off against the LA Angels. We do know that Stephen Kolek is going to be on the bump for the Royals. As of right now, it's a little to be determined. It's going to be on the bump for the Los Angeles Angels, so that's why this game is off the board. The CBS projections and the other projections have Yusei Kikuchi on the bump, and if you get Kikuchi going up against Kolek, I set the Angels at a -105 on the money line, willing to go up to -104 there. Plus 106 or better looking at the Royals, and then set a total of an 8.4, 8.5 or higher to the under, 8 or less to the over. Now, if it's not Yusei Kikuchi, probably going to get like some sort of a bullpen game or some sort of a untrustworthy starter, and that would probably make the Royals closer about like a -130, -135 favorite, and a total of an 8 or less to the over, a 9 or higher to the under. So be mindful of that. But with Kolek, who we do know we are getting in this game, he's been not getting a lot of strikeouts, but he's just been solid. Between his time with the Royals and the Padres, 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's only given up 2.5 walks per 9 innings, a 3.54 ERA. Already is a complete game on his leisure, albeit against the Colorado Rockies, but in his 4 starts ever since he joined the Royals, he has given up either 1 or 2 runs at every one of them and has filled at least 6 innings in every one of them. That's big, especially with the Royals being a little bit banged up in the bullpen with Lucas Erceg currently on the injury list. You still have Carlos Aceves, you still have Daniel Lynch, who have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. John Schreiber has been a little bit up-down all around, and they do just get Steven Cruz off the injury list as well. And for the Royals, it has been a case where the pitching has really been carrying the team because the offense, it's been not necessarily the most reliable, especially the guys at the bottom of the lineup, because you've been able to get good power out of Vinny Pasquantino and Salvador Perez, both between 30 and 31 home runs, albeit Perez is giving you less than a 290 on base. Pasquantino hitting more like a 270. Bobby Witt Jr., he's got the 350 on base, 37 stolen bags, 23 home runs. He's been doing a little bit of everything. And low-key, Miguel Garcia, 16 home runs and about a 350 on base, has been solid, but likes of a Randall Gierczyk, Mike Yastrzemski, John Rave, Jack Caglione, Michael Massey, these guys hitting at 230 or lower have been rough. And when Yastrzemski was batting leadoff, he had like 4 leadoff home runs. They pushed him down the order, and ever since then, he's really been struggling. And for the LA Angels, this is just very much an all-or-nothing team. They are a top 5 team in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, bottom 4 team in terms of on-base percentage. Logan Hoppy, very happy about the 19 home runs, not so happy about the 260 on base. Nolan Schunel has been able to move the line. He's been able to give you like a 340 on base, but even Mike Trout, he's hitting just at 229 this year, albeit the on-base percentage is still above a 350, 22 home runs, and then you've got Joe Adele, Taylor Ward. For Ward, 34 home runs, 36 for Joe Adele. Adele, though, less than a 300 on base, and Taylor Ward is hitting at 228. So, I mean, that's the up and down nature of this team. And then, likes of as well, Peraza, Christian Moore, Bryce DeCito, Denzar Guzman. These guys at the bottom of the lineup are just giving you a big, giant nothing burger. And for the Angels, this has been a shaky bullpen to say the least. Brock and Roll Burkle on Kenley Jansen give you a sub-3.5 ERA, but now they land Robert Stevenson on the injured list. You've had Luis Garcia give you like a 350 ERA, but Ryan Zephyrion and these mix and match guys like Sam Bachman just have been posting up ERAs well above a 4, so they're not necessarily reliable there. And if you do get Yusei Kikuchi, he has been in relatively rough form here in the back half of the season, but still, he's been able to give the team a little bit over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and just has been a whole lot better when he's been at home rather than away from home. For Yusei Kikuchi, I say that he's got a 3 ERA at home. At home, he's given up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. Same for the home runs per 9 rate away from him, but that goes up to a 504 there. He has been giving up the neighborhood about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, which has really been hurting him. So if you do get Yusei Kikuchi against Stephen Kolek, set the Angels at a -105. If you don't get Kikuchi, they're probably going to be about a +130 to a +135 underdog. And then Kikuchi against Kolek, 8 or less to the over, 8.5 or higher the under. If it is Kolek versus someone not named Yusei Kikuchi, 8.5 or less to the over, 9 or higher the under. 977, 978 on the card. The Astros hit the road. They're facing off against the Athletics. JT Ginninjuice is on the bump for the Athletics. Hunter Brown should be on the bump for the Astros. This is a bunch of TBD though right now, which that's why this game is off the board. But I've lined this up as if we're going to get Ginn versus Hunter Brown, and if we do indeed get this matchup, I set the Astros at a minus 146 on the money line, willing to lay up to a minus 145 there, plus 147 or higher. Looking at the Athletics, and then 8.5 or less, I'm in on the over, a 9 or higher to the under. The real key here is Hunter Brown. If you don't get JT Ginn and you get someone else, it's probably a little bit of a downgrade for the Athletics because Ginn has been able to give you about 9.5 to 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's been all over the place, and quite frankly, nobody for the Sacramento A's has been able to pitch very well in Sacramento thus far this season, so that's been a little bit of an issue for them, but I think the key here is Hunter Brown because he has just been so good thus far this season for the Astros. A 2.30 ERA who's been able to give the team about 10 strikeouts and 2.7 walks per 9 innings, not allowing the deep ball, comes in having allowed just 5 runs over the course of his last 4 starts. He gave up some unearned runs against Colorado, but if you're looking at earned runs, just 7 runs earned allowed in his last 5 starts, so he's been in relatively good form, and the Astros need it at this point because, man, that was a less than savory sweep that they took against the Seattle Mariners over the weekend, and for the Astros, this has been a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of run creation ever since the All-Star break. Even with Yordan Alvarez back in the fold, he hasn't necessarily been able to give you a lot of power, but it still give you about 360 to a 370 on base. Jeremy Pena has been dealing with a little bit of an injury as well. They had to have him out for Sunday Night Baseball, so that's a little bit less than tremendous considering he's hitting at 300, but Jose Altuve has been a constant for this team, 26 home runs, hitting at 265, and then you've got Yenny Diaz along Christian Walker supplying some good boom with Walker 23 home runs, but hitting just a 232 with less than a 300 on base, and for Diaz, 19 to 20 home runs. He's been able to hit above a 250, but still less than a 285 on base. And even someone like a Mauricio Dubon who hits a 250, less than a 300 on base. You don't get a lot of walks out of the Astros, though they don't strike out a lot as well. And then for the Athletics, when it comes to this lineup, you've got a quartet of guys who have been able to supply 24 plus home runs. Nick Kurtz, Tyler Soderstrom, along with Shea Langoliers, Shea Banks, and Brent Rooker. And then for all these guys, they're hitting at least a 259 with Kurtz leading the way with regards to on base at a 384. So he's been able to do a nice job there. Now, the bottom of the lineup for the Athletics has been a little bit sketchy whenever you've had out there the likes of a Kobe Thomas. He's been only give you about a 274 on base. William McIver at the catcher spot hitting below the Bedo's line of a 200. Max Schulman just has not been reliable whatsoever. So you got a lot of guys towards the bottom that have not been great. Lawrence Butler not hitting for the average you'd expect at a 236, but he is supplying 21 home runs and 21 stolen bags, like the only guy on the team that's supplying stolen bases. And you've had Jacob Wilson do a nice job finding way on base with a 315, but I am for the Athletics, whether you do get JT Ginn out there or not, they're going to have to rely a little bit on this bullpen, and the bullpen has not been great. Bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, you do have a pair of guys in Sean Newcomb along with Michael Kelly who have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and Elvis Alvarado has not been terrible with about a 350 ERA, but that said, when you dive into some of these other guys, it has been a disaster class. Mitch Spence is now serving as a little bit more of a starter for this team, but you've got the likes of Oswaldo Beto they've utilized as a long guy throughout the season. Someone like a Scott McGough, a Daniil Nunez. They had to DFA TJ McFarland because he was that bad. You go down the list of guys, they're supplying a 5+ ERA, and that's not necessarily amazing. And then on the other end, you do have a Houston Astros team that they are dealing with injuries. Josh Hader along with Bennett Sosa. Both of these guys being on the injury list has been less than great, but the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, both give you a sub-250 ERA. Steven Okert, a sub-315 ERA as well. They've been doing a nice job mixing and matching with Nick Hernandez, give you some good innings, and AJ Blubaugh is a long guy, has been able to do a relatively solid job as well. So if you do get Hunter Brown against JT Ginn / pretty much the Athletics in general, minus 145 or better, looking at the Astros, plus 147 or better, the Athletics, and then 8.5 or less to the over, 9 or higher to the under. If you don't get Hunter Brown, man, for the Astros, are probably still a slim favorite, but then you go to perhaps a 9.5 or less to the over, and a 10 or higher to the under. So very much banking on Brown making that start, and we wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. The Rockies are on the road against the Seattle Mariners. Tanner Gordon, we do know, is going to be starting for the Rockies. This should be Luis Castillo going for the Seattle Mariners, but as of right now, that's a little bit off the board, so we shall see what is going to be happening there, but I've got my handicap. I'm willing to lay pretty much up to a minus 140 with regards to the Seattle Mariners run line. I would need north of a plus 280 to be able to take a shot on the Rockies, and instead of total where 7.5 or less, I'm in on the over, and 8 or higher to the under. Now, Tanner Gordon's actually been pretty solid for the Colorado Red Rockies recently. You look at the overall season numbers, and the overall season numbers are not great for Gordon. He's been posting up a 6 ERA, but 4.65 fielding independent indicates that he's been getting a little bit unlucky. Needs to tone it down with the deep ball, giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings, but now gets a pitch in Seattle where it's been very pitcher-friendly thus far this season, and he's given up 3 earned runs or fewer in 5 out of his last 6 starts. So for Gordon, things have been coming around. He had a few just blow-up starts towards the beginning part of the season that really hurt him, and if you do indeed get Luis Castillo, he's been so much better at home rather than away from home. For Castillo, 3.63 ERA, he's only getting 7.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's a career worst for him. Still's been able to keep things out in front of him, 1.1 home runs, 2.4 walks allowed per 9 innings, but for Castillo, 2.71 home ERA, 4.71 ERA on the road. This despite the fact that his home runs per 9 rate not overly different at home. He's been giving up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings at home, closer to about 1.25 home runs per 9 innings away from home, and he's obviously backed up by a lineup that has some big dumpers on there, including the big dumper in Cal Raleigh, who's up to 57 plus home runs, has been able to supply you with a 360 plus on base, so he's been a constant. Now, Eugenio Suarez is currently hitting for no average whatsoever with the Seattle Mariners, but you know what, with Eugenio Suarez, he has been able to supply 47 home runs overall for the season. And then you've got Randy Arozarena, who's giving you above a 330 on base, he's up to 27 home runs. Julio Rodriguez, 30 bombs, he's hitting at 270, and Dom Canzone has been hitting just below 300. He's been good in moving the line along JP Crawford, so very nice rock solid Seattle Mariners lineup there. But as we know, Seattle once again one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all baseball, and for Colorado, they're averaging fewer than 3 runs per game away from home. That is dead sinking last in all baseball. Hunter Goodman's been great, 30 home runs, and 17 plus of them have come away from home, but then you have so many guys, they're hitting below a 225 away from home, like Ezekiel Tovar, Mickey Moniak, Blaine Crim, so many of these Mitch and Max guys, Brenton Doyle, they're just all not hitting away from home. So that's a big issue for the Rockies, and for the Rockies, 29th out of 30 teams in terms of bullpen ERA. They put Luis Peralta on the injured list, and it's not necessarily a loss for them, as Victor Vodnik, Jeremy Harrigan, both of these guys have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. Juan Mejia and Jaden Hill have not necessarily been completely awful for this bullpen, but when you've had to look through the likes of Anthony Molina, Nick Anderson, Anel Shavili, the mix and match guys, they're all providing an ERA well above a 5, and for the Seattle Mariners, Andres Munoz, Matt Brash, Edward Bizardo, Gabe Spire, they're all give you a sub 3 ERA. Now the guys towards the bottom of the totem pole, like your Trent Thorntons, whenever they utilize a guy like that, Carlos Vargas, they've been a little bit unreliable, but I do think that the Mariners should be able to go out there, take care of business. I'm willing to lay up to about a minus 140 with the Mariners run line, plus 283 or better. We'll be looking at the Rockies, and then 7.5 or less in on the over, 8 or higher to the under, and that'll wrap things up for the Wednesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to Rob Donaldson of the show/podcast Rob's Best Bets for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, the Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm with you guys every single day on this podcast throughout the regular season into the postseason, so I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.